Today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. I recently joined as a member, and you can too. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co. And when you go to apply and they ask you, how did you hear about Podgo? Make sure you tell them that the Vault Classic Music Review sent you.
Welcome to the Vault Podcast, Classic Music Reviews, presented by IV Creative. Now, here's your hosts, B. Cox and the crew.
Greetings and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Vault Podcast, Classic Music Reviews, presented by IV Creative. It's a perspective of the classics from a fresh point of view. We appreciate you for taking your time and lending your ears to our perspective. You could be anywhere listening to anything, but you're right here with us, so we thank you. With you today is yours truly, B. Cox, and with me, I have the crew. You know who they are. First off, we got my boy in the building. He is the creator and host of the Raw Sex Podcast. Each and every Friday, make sure you check out a new episode. Follow him on social media for a great follow. Always dropping tidbits here and there and great entertainment. Of course, I'm talking about none other than Cousin Damo, a.k.a. Dominique Marks. Make sure y'all checking out Raw Sex Podcast. Had some great discussions lately. Of course, make sure you're following him on IG, following him on Twitter. He's a great follow. And make sure you're checking into them stories and also checking into the Raw Podcast and tell a friend to tell a friend. And also with us as well is my man, J.O., in the place to be, here with us as well. Fellas, appreciate y'all for joining us. And thank you, of course, to our listeners who are out there still riding with us throughout everything. Continue to see the numbers go up. People joining the Facebook and the YouTube channel. Make sure y'all go ahead and keep checking us out. We appreciate y'all continuing to support the Vault Classic Music Reviews. As we always like to say here in the Vault, our motto is hashtag open the vault, hashtag nothing but the classics or MBTC. And in doing that, as you know, here on the Vault, we cover music from 20, 25, and 30 years ago, classic albums, potential classic albums on the anniversaries of their releases. And we talk about the music and the impact that it has, and also, you know, the effect that it had on our lives and the lives of our peers and contemporaries. That's an important part. Music plays a part in all of our lives. And this is actually a bonus episode. We're not doing a review today, but we will be doing something just as important. Celebrating the life of one of the greats. And all of you following the news, unless you've been under a rock or in outer space or somewhere on Mars or Jupiter or Saturn or somewhere out of space or not even alive, would know what happened this week. On Friday, this past week, we lost a legend in the hip-hop community, in the music community, in the world. Earl Simmons, better known to everybody as DMX or Darkman X, one of the most iconic hip-hop figures of the last 20 to 25 years. Passed away on Friday at the age of 50. Had suffered a heart attack the week before, spent close to a week in the hospital, and news spread that earlier in the week that he had become, he was not responsive, had no brain activity, was in a vegetative state. And then finally on Friday, news came out that he passed. And everywhere that we looked on Friday, and since then, there's been nothing but countless tributes from fans, from peers, from contemporaries, from everyone that you could think about, journalists, about DMX and his legacy. And to the audience that is here, your host, all of us were around during a certain period in time when we know and understood his rise in the music industry, and we witnessed it firsthand. We were witnesses to one of the greatest careers that we've seen in recent history. And it's a story that is filled with both triumph and tragedy and also redemption. But a man who is probably so well loved, but sometimes so misunderstood. And it was a sad day for all of us who came up during a certain era because we knew and we saw. And what we'll discuss over these next few minutes heading into the next week as plans are made for his arrangement's funeral is his legacy, his impact, and what we remember. So y'all, just to sit back and think about it, you know, we're all of a certain age, all of us in our late 30s, you know, y'all two are fathers. I'm getting married. We've moved on, have grown. We've seen things happen. So we all know everything about DMX and his career. We all came up in our formative years hearing this music as a part of our soundtrack from high school into collegiate years and even past then. So what I'll ask y'all is just each one of you all, just like where you were when you found out the news, and then what your immediate thoughts were when you heard that he had passed, like what filled your mind. So I'll start with anyone, whoever wants to go first.
I'll go ahead. I guess I'll go ahead and get started. Like, so of course, you know, with COVID, you know, we all working from home and everything. So initially I heard, of course, like we'd already heard about his condition by this point, but then I think I had just clocked out for lunch. And, you know, I had like my alerts on my phone and everything like that. And then I saw that's what they said the family made the decision to take him off life support. And I was like, dang, this man's really gone. Like, and then the first thing along with that was like, you know, of course, like being like really saddened by that, because I was hoping like he was really able to conquer those demons. Like, especially because we all knew like, you know, he'd been battling with drugs like forever, like crack and Lord knows what else he was into. So it was like, damn, like another one bites the dust. And this is like a legend. This is an icon that's gone. This wasn't just like, you know, some rapper like, you know what I'm saying, that made a hit like maybe 2 weeks ago, they got shot or something like that, or died, and then everybody was act like they were the greatest things since sliced bread. This was, you know, it just kind of hit different. I mean, yeah, being older, but then, you know, thinking about life different, like dang, like I'm thinking about all the demons, like I said, all the demons he was facing, the way he connected with so many people, and just the way he stood out, and even from his era, as far as like, you know, like all the shiny suits and talking about cars and this, that, and the third, like DMX definitely wasn't about that. You know what I'm saying? Like, so he was like lying among lions in that sense, as far as like his subject matter and how he fit into, you know what I'm saying, that blueprint at the time as far as like hip hop. So yeah, honestly, like I said, like even when I put on my stats, I was just numb from it. Yeah, because I mean, we knew, like, I mean, especially like what the state was like, you know, was gonna be good, but then like the reality really set in. It's like, damn, he's gone, and like, you know, and like thinking about his family and everything like that. So
yeah,
it's truly unfortunate.
It is. Damo?
Well, I kind of already expected him to be gone after they said no brain function.
Yeah.
And, you know, normally, you know, that when that happens, you know, you probably, more times than not, you hear them if the family keeping them alive, it's rare that they come back from no brain function. And that's mainly months and years. And that's like, oh, a miracle happened 2 years down the line. They came, but that's, you know, that's money. So, and that's money, unfortunately, that I don't think that he had for them to keep him on life support like that, for that to happen. Yeah. And the other thing is, I mean, you know, you say his demons or whatever, but we not even, the family then said he wasn't doing drugs. It was the COVID shot. So we don't only what the other people that do the autopsy can tell us what he died from. We probably wouldn't ever really know. We ain't gonna know if it's the shot or if he did slip back. From what it looked like over the last month or so, he looked like he was doing good, and them demons was probably on his back, but not normally when, you know, you fighting those demons. Normally something, depression happens to make you go back to that right there. And, you know, the chick that he's with or whatever, fiance, she just posted a video, a day or two before then, of him being happy in the car. So it don't look like, you know, from the outside. Yeah. You know, I was at work, and, you know, I wasn't shocked. I was, you know, we hoping it's DMX, so we hoping that, you know, if anybody can get through it, it's him, because, you know, if it ain't nobody that's more of a soldier for God, ain't too many of them but him, because, you know, he don't. Before Kanye did Jesus Walks, the only person that was really, you can say that was somewhat of godly like in hip hop was DMX. He, on every album, you hear him giving prayers and everything, you know what I'm saying? So if anybody, you still kept hope that it would be him, like, Lord, just, all right, it's X, so you might push him back through here to us.
Yeah, exactly. And we won't know what it was. I mean, the thing about it is that, you know, it's not uncommon for black men at the age of 50 to die from heart attacks, you know, and to pass away from that. That speaks to a much bigger issue, you know. And I saw somebody post things about stuff like that, is that we've seen a lot of rappers pass away from things in their 40s and 50s and to be relatively young, and a lot of it has to do with stuff not just, you know, about health, and some of the things that some of them live hard lives, and that's a result of them living hard lives and not making good choices. In some cases it's just a matter of, you know, the fact that we have to deal with so many more obstacles than the average person has to deal with. So I was working from home as well, and I kind of like you said, Damo, kind of expecting it, but it still didn't numb the fact that when he was actually gone, to see the reaction of people on social media and on Twitter, to see the reaction from his contemporaries really is what told the story. I actually pulled up a video of Dragon, who actually was in tears, posted a video. He was in tears, which I can understand because him and D were probably as close with each other as two rappers possibly could be, is their careers being linked. When I saw the news, I definitely posted something, and I did something on Facebook. A lot of folks on my feed saw it, and I got, a lot of love from it. And, but it's because it was what on my heart. And I said, no words. For people who weren't alive or into the culture, you cannot overstate how big DMX was in 98 to 01. His year in 98, no one was bigger. Not even Jay-Z. He had street hits. He had club bangers. Very few of his contemporaries could command a stage like him. Fans loved him. Peers respected him. He had demons that he couldn't control, but that doesn't change his standing in the culture. Earl Simmons, a.k.a. DMX, rest peacefully, brethren. Thank you for your contributions to hip-hop in the world. Hashtag rest in peace, DMX. I also saw a tweet on Twitter, and I wrote, the tweet said, let me tell you something. If you weren't alive during DMX's reign, nigga. And I said, if you had to be there or y'all weren't outside was a tweet, it would be this. You could argue, during my opinion, during the last classic year in hip-hop, 1998, that he was the biggest star and most successful hip-hop artist of that time. 2 albums, both #1 on the charts, both multi-platinum in the same calendar year. You know who else who did that? Tupac. You had to be there. And that really kind of sums up, I think, everybody in our generation, how we felt about DMX. You cannot seriously overstate how big this man was during one calendar year in particular. Now, he sustained that for a few years, but in 98, you could argue that anybody of the last 30 years, there's no rapper that probably had a bigger year in 1998 than DMX had in that particular year. You talk about 2 #1 albums, both multi-platinum, both arguably classics. A cult classic of a movie in Belly that came out that really its status has risen over the last few years, because while it wasn't a critical hit or critical phenomenon, it's definitely a cult classic. And he was one of the things that made that movie go, because of his personality, because of who he was. And he took that and everything he did, his music, the stage presence. I mean, that clip that we all seen from Woodstock 99, where it seemed like it was probably like 5 million people in that crowd, of him doing Rough Riders Anthem, is the type of energy that you can't even replicate from anybody who's out doing hip-hop today, who is like the top folks. And no disrespect to anybody from this generation, but you can't take that type of passion for the culture and bundle that into an artist and put that in front of that many people and make them move with such relative ease like he did. That's when we talk about legend. That's when we're talking about the legendary stuff that we witnessed during our generation. He embodied all of that. It was the grit, the grime, coming back from an era that was shiny suits to bringing it back to the streets, to having club bangers. I mean, I think he checked a lot of boxes as far as when it came to music. And then I think that what he had in his music, like I was talking about this in my Fuji's review for the score, is that music when you can tell it's been conceived through pain, that you can feel it by the ones who've actually experienced that pain. And you felt that in his music from the very first album to the last one he put out. You can tell that pain was a big driver in making his music. It was emotionally raw. It hit you right in the gut, right in the heartstrings. A big loss, a really, really big loss. So, I mean, just a few things that I wanted to talk about, man. Rewind back to 97. Because this is really when the majority of us who didn't know the industry in depth, and back then you really didn't know things like you know now, because the internet wasn't as big into hip hop as it is now. But in 97, we talk about the classic run that DMX had that put him into everybody's spotlight, that put him into the consciousness of America. Features on Money, Power, Respect, on 4321, on 24 Hours to Live. Features on things like on Shut 'Em Down. At a certain point in time, he was like one of the most sought after feature artists out there, and that's where the hype got started. just y'all like reflections on the features that you heard about him before he even dropped an album.
Oh, them features was bangers.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Every all them features was bangers. The 24 Hours to Live jump was sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the video.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that video epic right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Like, yeah, it's like, I mean, that joint was a banger. Then when now I'm thinking about, like, I'm saying, the Shut 'Em Down joint, like, you know, he kind of like really disrupted that Onyx formula. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think, you know, I'm talking about, you know, how Sticky always had at the last verse that would just blow everything out the frame.
Yeah.
X came in that joint before and was like, hold up, like, before you do all that play, you know what I'm saying? Let me do my thing. It's like, okay, now we'll get to you. You know what I'm saying? So like, not in a diss type of way, but like, you know, like, he definitely stood out along with Sticky, as far as like, you know, that typical Onyx form, as far as how they did their songs back then. Yeah. And yeah, as far as like features, I mean, yeah, the 4-3-2-1 joint, I think that's the one that got everybody's attention as far as like, say, oh snap, who is this dude? Like, it might have been right before the 24 Hours to Live joint, if I'm not mistaken.
It was. It definitely was. Yeah. It definitely was. Yeah.
But that track, I mean, he just brought the energy on there. It definitely like sparked interest, like, okay, clearly this dude is next. So, you know what I'm saying? Then, like, you know, he definitely didn't fail to deliver, like, you know what I'm saying, on his upcoming joints.
Yeah.
B, didn't you see him in person in New York back then?
I did. Yeah, we did. And that's another thing I'll touch on. Like,
I remember you talking about him before he even hit big back then, if I recall correctly. If my memory is right.
Yeah, I'd heard about him.
Telling me about some dude that was coming that you saw up there.
Yeah, I did, man. Being up there and being around my cousins and family, you know, he was at a show, and this was some outside joint or whatever, and people have been talking about him like, yo, you know, this dude, he from Yonkers or whatever, you know, he nice. And when I heard him on 4-3-2-1, I'm like, this is the same dude that I heard, like, you know what I'm saying, that I saw like earlier this year. And like, the crazy thing about it is he was nice back then, and then every single feature he was on, like every single one of those songs, he stole the show on every single one of them. And it wasn't like he was on these songs and there was weak people on the songs with them. I mean, look at who else he was on these different songs with. 4-3-2-1, he on the joint with Method Man and Rep Man and Cannabis and LL Cool J. On 24 Hours to Live, he's on the joint with Mace. Who else is on the 24 Hours to Live? Yeah, all of them are on the joint. On Shut 'Em Down, he's on the joint with Onyx. Money, Power, Respect, he's on the joint with Deluxe. And it seems like every single feature leading up in that run, he stole the show. It's like literally, whatever attention you got, okay, bam, now I have your attention. That's the way that he stepped onto a track. Like, give me your attention right now. That's what I want. And it was just like, damn, yo, this dude come out with an album. It's crazy. So that leads into 98. I think, to me, 98 was really like the last true classic year in hip-hop. I mean, I'm talking about like being loaded with classics from top to bottom. But then he comes out. His single, the Get At Me Dog, was the first single, which was a crazy song. And then the album comes out. The first album, which is It's Dark and Hell Is Hot. That joint dropped in the spring of 98. And Damo, I know you remember that. I was like one of the first folks to get that joint that week. And I think that stayed in my Discman for probably the rest of that school year, going into that summertime. And we would sit down, and Damo could tell you, we sat down at the table, and I think all of us, for the most part, there were a few Bammers that were like sort of like into No Limit and didn't like, you know, New York stuff, was probably like, oh, this DMX shit is whack, because, you know, that's what you dealt with when you went to school sometimes. But for the most part, everybody at our lunch table was rocking with that joint. And it was wild, man.
Who dick you sucking?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
I don't know nobody from Yonkers.
Like, you lying ass bitch. But I got to say him out. You know what I'm saying? But just on that first album, though, I listened to it after the news came out on Friday, and I was still blown away. They're almost 25 years later, man. Just y'all reflections on that joint, on It's Dark and Hell Is Hot, and definitely hit people a different way because of the era when it dropped in a different direction it was taking things.
Yeah, so for me, it's like, it was a breath of fresh air for me, because that was like, you know, again, like around the same time, you know, Cannabis was out, and like it seemed like hip hop was shifting more back to like the street aspect or the lyrical aspect, you know, even though, you know, No Limit and everything was popping and all like that, but, you know what I'm saying, then like listen to the material, and then I ain't gonna lie, it took me a while like to listen past, you know what I'm saying, the Rough Riders anthem, because I kept that joint on repeat, like just the energy that during the chant of it, and then like the way he was rapping on that joint, like I didn't expect really like a New York rapper to sound like that. Cause I mean, you know, with Swiss Beats production, I mean, it does incorporate like a lot of down south, like marching band type of elements in it. So the fact like he was able to flip it and make that joint, like I kept that joint on repeat. And then, of course, like, you know, Get At Me Dog. And then, you know what I'm saying, How It's Going Down. I feel like that's one of my, because you know how like sometimes like you'll have like a soundtrack as far as like summer joints or whatever, like I would say it was like that part's like spring leading into some like early summer and all like that. So you know what I'm saying, definitely like just a cool joint. Then like, you know, Stop Being Greedy and then The Omen, which is another joint I thought like people which really took it in a different direction, like as far as like, you know, rapping as far as like the devil and things like that. And then well, it's not so much like on some devil worship shit and not like that, but like really showing that, like, you know, that struggle and the struggle that people have that I don't want to say put them in hard times, but like, you know, that might be going through their mind through that time period. And then like, you know what I'm saying, like the prayer. I actually remember like one of my mans, he had played me the joint over the phone because he had the album before I did. And he stopped and he's like, dude, there's no way you don't have a soul if you didn't feel that prayer like when you said it.
Man, bruh.
Oh, and then another thing, like, is, you know, I was one of those hip hop nerds, like, you know, when you got the CD, you would like look at the credits and all this stuff in the packaging.
Yeah,
he recorded most of the joint in Capitol Heights.
Yeah, I know at Horizon's studio in Capitol Heights. Yeah,
Like, whoa, like you came down here, like
right off of Central Avenue, 94 off of Central Avenue. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember that too, reading that and seeing that too. I was like, whoa, Capitol Heights, Maryland. That's crazy. Yeah.
And I'm thinking this is gonna be one track, but I'm looking at like another giant Capitol Heights. Like, how long was he down here? Like,
yeah, exactly. Nah, it was definitely something else, man. Damo, what about you? I mean, we was in the same place at the same time when that album came out and when it dropped.
All I remember is I have a female cousin at that time, and she was probably about a year, 2 years older than me, and that's actually who I thought about as soon as the news first broke of him, you know, having all that. I said, "Dang, my cousin gonna be distraught because she loved that. As soon as that album, she loved that nigga."
Right? Yeah.
I don't even want to say she was a fanatic, not even a fan, fanatic.
Yeah.
And even maybe like last year, I think I put, you know, I used to put a whole lot of music on my story. I put some DMX joint on my story, and she was right in my messenger. "Cause you know I love him still."
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I think of that album, like that's who I think about, like going whenever I go to her house. That's all she would have on. You know, especially How's It Going Down.
Yeah.
"I'm with you, X. I'm with you. I mean, with you or what?" I'm like, "Yo, cuz that nigga never gonna see you, cuz."
Hey, that's crazy. That's wild. Yeah, man.
But yeah, I mean, you know, like you said, you know, we had them jokes at the table, them discussions, you know, the skits was perfect.
Yeah.
That first album was, we ain't break it down, so we ain't gonna say nothing about it. But yeah, it was a different voice, different tone.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It was a whole rack of energy. And then, you know, him talking to Damien.
Yeah.
And he calling his son or whatever. I remember that. I was like, "What in the world? For real?" I said, "Oh, this slick." He changed up the voice on the jump. I was like, "Oh, this Bama off the hook."
Yeah. That Damien joint, man. Oh, it almost like reminded me of Biggie from going Give Me the Loot. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like this is some creative ass shit, like some next level type creativity. Man, that album when it came out, I couldn't stop playing it. And you know, when I did drive my car and I had the system in it, I was definitely pumping this joint. And it was one of those joints that you could blast in your system, blast in the club, and then also just sort of chill out a little bit and vibe to it. Everything from storytelling to hype anthems to the creativity. I mean, I don't know if there's an album out there where a dude actually talked to the devil and also talked to God. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, how crazy is that? That prayer. To top off almost the perfect album is to have one of the best posse cuts that I've heard in my life, which is Niggas Done Started Something. And I mean, you want to talk about the Locks, Mace, and DMX all on the track, all like almost close to their peak at that time. And he still had the best verse on there. Again, we talk about these features being on a track with other MCs and you raise your game. That's just the hallmark of a great MC, when you raise your game based on the company that you have with you on a track. So that joint comes out, it bangs throughout the whole summer. Survival of the Illest tour. Again, one of the best tours in hip hop history. Had one of the best shows to close out a tour. And then not even 6 months after he drops this, he drops another album. Flesh is my flesh, blood of my blood. And that joint came out. And you see things, songs like, there's the Slippin' joint comes out. To me, I think one of his signature songs, because it really, no other song I think probably captured his internal struggle more than Slippin' did. And that really became like, I guess you would call like a standard. But, you have stuff like, we don't give a fuck, and, Damien Part 2, and then Blackout and Ready to Meet Him and Slippin', all like a good, you talk about a good follow-up. This is like right near the tail end of that year. So then all of a sudden, bam, you come up and it's arguably another classic, another multi-platinum album. He was the second rapper to have 2 albums released in the same calendar year to debut at number 1 on the Billboard 200. The only other person to do it, Tupac. All Eyes on Me and the Machiavelli joint. That capped off a year in 98, and then you put into the fact that he was starring in Belly, which came out in November, which, as we said, critically, not really a great movie, but over the years, it has become a cult classic, and he was one of the biggest things of that movie because it was almost like his rap characteristic was almost the same person that was Tommy in Belly. He was almost like the same type nigga, like, you know what I'm saying? Like real energetic, real hype, real everything else, and, that movie became big over these last 20 to 25 years because he was one of the biggest successes to come out of that, and that only started what he was going to do film-wise over the next couple of years. But then he continues his success. Then there was X, which came out in 99, which had the What's My Name, and then had his biggest hit, actually, which was Party Up, which was the one track that I think that a lot of us didn't think that DMX would come out with, but it became a song that has been so big that not even 20-something years later, it's still a big hit, and you still hear it at random sporting events. At different places, people play it. You hear it. It's like the main crossover hit that I think that white folks love to play. Then he starts getting into these movies. Romeo Must Die. Then as he gets into the 2000s, you see him start to get into films like Exit Wounds and Never Die Alone. Backstage. He was in Backstage. I mean, all these different films. He becomes like this film star, and then releases that in conjunction with his music. And then, like, Jay, you even know, like, we started hearing these songs even in the 2000s with the Great Depression. Bring It, We Right Here, What We Do, and even Where the Hood At and all that other stuff, and Get It On the Floor and all these other stuff. And then, like, so he's still a big hit into the 2000s and we're in college, So he was still a big star, still, like, a really, really big star. Just y'all thoughts, like, about, y'all see the transition of him as he became a bigger star from a rapper, then became like this entertainer because he was becoming a movie star too.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seemed like back then, that everybody was trying to get the LL Cool J and Will Smith go from music to the movies, and it definitely like that's where he was transitioning into before he let stuff get to him. So it was that the movies wasn't terrible. It was decent movies for real. And you look at on Bounce, you always gonna catch one of his movies on there at least every other week.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right.
And the crazy thing, he always had Drag On with him in the movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. True. This is true. Yeah. Jay.
Yeah. I mean, like, it was pretty impressive. I think honestly that typically like when somebody makes that transition like the movies and stuff like that, you think the music's gonna kind of lack, but that wasn't the case with DMX.
Yeah.
So he was still putting out bangers like, as far as like into the early 2000s. I mean, like, especially even around the time Romeo Must Die. I mean, he had the joint he did with Aaliyah.
Yeah, Back in
One Piece. I mean, which is a bang. It was for the soundtrack, but even with the success of that and him continuing on, like, he still sounded hungry. That's what I think really impressed me. Like, because I'm pretty sure, like, I mean, even by 2001, when Who We Be came out, he sounded hungry as hell on that joint. I don't care what nobody say.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
And then and that's what I posted on that joint because, bro, I know what it's like to be in front of a microphone, like,
yes.
And like I used to see like live performances. Matter of fact, it was a joint on 106 in Park when he first performed that joint.
Yeah.
And the crowd, the party would go like da da like that part. They was still saying that joint after the fact. I'm like, shit.
Yeah. One thing about X, he knew how to write a hook, man. Like, that's the one thing. Like, yo, it's, if nothing else, like, my man could write some hooks for his songs. He definitely knew how to be able to write his songs to amplify a performance on stage as well. And I think him being a performer on stage helped him to transition better over to be an actor. You know what I'm saying? Now, some people made a joke like he played the same role in every single movie he was in, and it's it's almost funny because if you think about, you know, like almost like Belly and then Romeo Must Die and Exit Wounds, it's like he's the same type of nigga, like no same personality, but you can't Cradle to the Grave, like, you know, you like you deal with all these different like the personalities. Another thing to be spoken about, like for his legacy during that time, look at the people that he brought along with him, that he either brought them into the consciousness of America or into the game or elevated their profile. We talked about Dragon. Dragon said during his video, he's the reason why I got into this. I'm in this game in the first place that brought me to the world. He's the one who brought me to the world to introduce me to the game. Look at Eve being a part of Rough Riders. I mean, now the Locks were a group, but when they left Bad Boy and went to Rough Riders, it was almost like they were really back to the essence of what they truly were as a group. They were from the same place. They spoke more of the same language, them and DMX, more than them and Diddy did. Anybody who was in or a part of Rough Riders, really, you talk about how we helped to elevate them into the game. And when you hear people, his contemporaries, talk about one of his greatest contributions in their lives was about the fact that he was always willing to help somebody, you know, because he was that person at one point in time. He spent more than a decade trying to get on as a rapper in the industry from 14 all the way up until he came out in 98, you know, and really elevated himself as a superstar. He always knew just kind of like how to be able to help people because, you know, people will always talk about his generosity and how he sort of wanted to lift people up. He did that through his music, but personally, he did it for people and be able to help to present opportunities as well. But then he started coming into some problems. In the mid-2000s, you don't see as much of him around. He's not releasing as much music anymore. And then you started hearing about the drug problems, about the arrest problems and everything else. And, you know, he sort of fades from consciousness after a while. And then people start to make, you know, see these mugshots of him. And then, you know, in this society that we live in, unfortunately, people start to make jokes. You know, people started making jokes and to calling him names, and him having these drug problems, supposedly dealing with crack and all of the different type of drugs. He had mental health issues. He told us on, you know, that on his first album that he was a manic depressive, bipolar. I mean, he told us that, you know, he dealt with those type of problems. And the drug problem started when he was with Reddy Ron, who was his mentor, who actually tricked him into smoking a blunt laced with crack. And that's when his drug problem started. And it was kind of sad to see him after a while sort of just fade into obscurity and these problems start to happen. And, you know, despite the love that he's gotten in these past couple of weeks, I know you all both know that there were times where there were people out there that were clowning X big time.
Yeah, definitely. Like, along with like the drug problem, like all the, I don't want to say hijinks, but like stuff he's getting into, like, you know, the whole, especially the whole thing, like, you know, supposing him like impersonating the cop or whatever, pulling somebody over, and I don't want to say, it wasn't like so much a clown, but he was getting almost like he was getting more so known for that than the music. Like, you know, he had already had like such an impact and legacy before that. So yeah, it was just unfortunate. Like, you know what I'm saying, like he was just out there lunching for whatever reason. So
yeah, he was dealing with a lot of stuff, man. That's, you know, I just didn't like the way that he was sort of being brought down by people. And, you know, some people did it and, you know, they were having fun at his expense, but I didn't like it, you know, a lot. These last few years, though, he definitely seemed to be back into the public's eyes. And last year, in particular, in like the height of everything, you saw him start to come back up. There was the Versus last year with him and Snoop. And everybody talked about how entertaining that was. If you watched the whole thing, I watched a good portion of it. And he was hilarious in that. Like, he seemed like he was doing well. Like, people were making jokes like, you know, that him and Snoop were like your two drunk uncles at the cookout, you know what I'm saying, sitting back and just drinking and talking shit. But one thing that I sort of noticed is, like, in contrast to Snoop's music, you saw just how much staying power his music still had all these years later. You know what I'm saying? Not only that, but then all the respect in the world that Snoop still had for DMX. You know what I'm saying? Like, to see even Snoop fan out over DMX's music. Like, I'll never forget when they played, like, What These Bitches Want. And Snoop getting up and just like, oh, this is my shit right here. Like, I just want to be your background singer for this shit. Let me just, you know what I'm saying? Let me be your background singer for this shit. And
we will never know, X. We will never know.
Yeah. Right, exactly. We will never know. Exactly. A sidebar. We will never know. So, but then our Snoop saying like, yo, if you're going to take your shirt off, I'm going to be taking my shirt off. And him being like, yo, we going to look like the number 10 out this motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? Because people were making comments about how X, you know, had a little bit of the belly out. You know what I'm saying? Like my man, but you know, he allowed, the man was getting towards 50. You know what I'm saying? So you get it. But it was just how he was able to have fun at his own expense and to sort of seem to be enjoying things. You saw recently he did the episode of Nori when he was on Drink Champs. And he seemed like he was well there. But you know what I'm saying? He seemed, as you said, Damo, seemed really to be like in a pretty good place. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's really what kind of hits so hard about this. And then since he actually passed away, the one thing that I sort of mention is, and you mentioned how like, you know, how well your cousin was and other people were, the things that started coming out when people said that they were running into DMX, like random places, and him being able to take pictures with people. Like, I don't know how, if y'all saw the same thing. Like, I saw like at least 4 or 5 people on my timeline that ran into him at random times over these last few years where he just, you know, they took pictures with him. And you know what I'm saying? Like, did y'all see a lot of that on your timeline? You know, 'cause I ran into like 4 or 5 different people that were on my friends list that took pictures of this nigga. One girl with a group of their friends, they was down at Bike Week one year. Another person was in the airport, I think like in Jacksonville, he was there. There was a video of someone else of this lady seeing him somewhere. She did a buck the U-turn, drove up, and then like fangirl out for him like, oh my God, I need to get a picture. Girl, get my phone. You know, so I saw a lot of that over these last few days. Did y'all see any of that? Like on your timelines? It's just random pictures of people you're seeing DMX.
I think we might be talking. I think one of the ones that you was talking about, we might have seen the same picture. Like they was out front of the hotel, whatever, and like DMX kind of like laid on him and all.
Yeah.
My
homegirl. Yeah.
Talking about Kia.
Yeah, Kia. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I went to LaSalle with her. Yeah, so like we go back too. So
yeah. So yeah, man, that was just, it's really cool pictures. But I saw a lot of other people like randomly. They had pictures of him like randomly, like being like the airport, some mall somewhere, like in Arizona, like some place they running into him. And the thing is that all these regular people that are sort of running up to DMX, he was always willing to take a minute and talk to him and take a picture with him and everything else, sign autographs or whatever. There was that story that went viral about a white lady in a plane that she was flying on a plane and she sat next to him and he introduced himself as D. And he was like, yeah, you know, like DMX. And he said, nah, my real name is Earl. So he said that the white lady said she went and talked to her daughter. And her daughter was like, oh my God, Mom, you met DMX? Like, and then she basically pulled up his music and was like sitting there like playing his music. She was like, you know, but he was always the nicest person in the world. But that's just another thing I think about his overall legacy is that his music, like we talked about the prayers and everything. Like, to me, I think that was one of the most revealing things about him. Like, he was willing to show us his flaws. He was willing to show us that, you know, he was a damaged person, but he was still trying. You know, like the whole Steve Harvey phrase, don't trip, he ain't through with me yet. That was sort of like DMX. You know what I'm saying? Those prayers that he prayed, like you said, Jay, like when you listen to that first prayer and any other prayer he does on any one of those albums, it's almost like if hood niggas would pray, this is how they would pray and this is how they feel it if they're going to pray to God. And for a very small portion of the population, that sort of gave, I would say, even like a highlight into his life, but then also probably even prompted some people to even take a look at their relationship with God. When you could get into a prayer like that, and it was almost like, you know, this poetry that he did to express how he was talking to God and how God was helping him along these paths despite all the demons that he dealt with. It was just like inspiring to be able to deal with. So I think that's why the reaction to this is so bad for those of us in our generation, because we connected to him because we knew that he wasn't perfect, but we were okay with it though. You know, we knew that he wasn't perfect, but we were okay with it. We saw that he was human and he was willing to make his mistakes and live through his mistakes with us. And we weren't judging him for it, you know, because we know people like him. I mean, we've dealt with a lot of our homies. Some of them aren't even here anymore, you know, family members, whoever. But we didn't judge him for that because we knew that he was only human, because we knew people who went through the same things that he went through. And some of them didn't even get through it with only a third of what he had dealt with. So we didn't judge him for it.
With the kids, we're only human. We all got our own baggage that we have to carry. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I was listening to I was listening to Swiss Beats yesterday, and he said, he's finally free. It's the only time his whole time living, he's been living for everybody else, and every time he's gone to jail was the most peace he's ever been. So now he was like, now he just feel good that he don't got to suffer no more.
Yeah,
because his whole life has been suffering.
Man.
And right there is, sad to hear right there.
It is, man. It is.
I mean,
He's like, even him, we talking about his albums or whatever, and Swiss said, even with them album success, he always questioning why him, Lord.
Yeah.
Why give me this?
Yeah.
And how can you think about, you being successful and you questioning why you successful instead of basking in the glory that's given to you?
Yeah. Yeah. Jay.
And that's what really made him really stand out. Like, the fact he was just so real with everything. Because, even overall in hip hop, it's like you got to put on a specific persona, like, being successful and flashy and all like that. And even on the opposite end of the spectrum, like, as far as like and more than the midst of that, put on that like tough gangster persona role. X is hardcore. Don't get it twisted. But at the same time, when it comes to internal struggles and in his personal life and like, what he expressed through his lyrics, that's what just really made that just shows, like it's best to be real as an artist, like
Right.
Hip hop enthusiasts, I really don't think anybody really gives a damn about your money, your chains and your cars and all that other stuff. Like,
Yeah.
even beyond the whole thing, like, who really wants to sit there and hear somebody rap, I got more money than you,
Yeah.
Like, that's gonna fade out. But somebody resonating to somebody that's actually going through struggles in their personal life, and it may not just be as deep as his struggles, but still kind of gave you that push to like push on, like, because Slippin' spoke to me, like some aspects, and because that was like early '99, so definitely going through some stuff back then, like, just for like to say like, okay, you ain't the only one out here suffering, people suffering worse than you, but you gotta pick up that strength and move forward. But then, like, it just made me think about what a quote that Charlamagne has said, like, I'd rather be known as a honest sinner than a lying hypocrite. Like, DMX is honest about his sins and like his struggles and everything like that. So that's something you really can't touch as far as like being able to reach the people. That's not something that that should be taken lightly as far as like having that impact on people. Because honestly, and no slight to Biggie, but I don't think really anybody's really felt like a loss of this magnitude, and probably at a greater magnitude since Tupac. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's the biggest since then. I do.
Oh, he had a much longer career than Tupac did, as far as like, between albums and obviously just living long and not dying young. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
this one's gonna be up. This one's gonna be felt for like years to come. Maybe not so much like anybody trying to emulate DMX's style as far as like his raps and like the way he dressed like Tupac did.
Only person tried was Ja Rule, and
yeah, true, right.
Yeah.
I think that Ja like hurt him because you like, nigga, what are you trying to do?
Yeah, and DMX put the nail in the coffin on him too. So.
Yeah. And you know what's funny is that reading this, DMX was like one of those people, like I put Sean Price in the same category. DMX was an MC's MC. Like, when I talk about his peers respected him, like, it's been nothing but love from all the best people in the industry, especially his peers and contemporaries. Like, everybody gave him respect. KRS-One said in a video that I saw on Twitter today that he said, when I'm talking about being in the company of an MC, this is the type of MC I want to be sitting next to in that company. Like, and that's big praise coming from a guy like KRS-One, who is the culture. You don't see that type of respect come out from people like that about a rapper like him. Even Rakim, the God, who DMX, by the way, met and like really became a fan, like in front of Rakim, because like when he was coming up, Rakim was it. And Rakim gave X his respect. So it was like, when you see rappers give somebody respect like that, pay attention, because they don't give everybody that type of respect. He commanded that respect from everybody who was his contemporaries and some of the ones who came after him as well, because they understand how big he was. But to speak about his demons and to speak about like the struggles and the first prayer that he did on It's Dark and Hell is Hot, which was the 3 tracks before the end, he said, there's a couple of lines in there and it says, and I'm fear what I'm saying won't be heard until I'm gone, but it's all good because I really didn't expect to live long. But then the last 2 lines, probably stuck with me the most, and I made this my IG status for the Vault page and also on my Facebook status. So if it takes for me to suffer, for my brother to see the light, give me pain till I die, but please, Lord, treat him right. I mean, that line stuck with me even when I was like 16 years old, that I'm like, yo, my man is willing to suffer for his brother to be able to see enlightenment, and is willing to suffer excruciatingly only for God to treat his brother right and to show him the right way. And I feel like he kept that motto from that poem all the way through to his death, because if anything, what his life should be able to serve as the testimony of perseverance, but then also about being able to keep on the right path, that even after all the success you may have and all the talent that you may have, you can also endure excruciating pain. But he was willing to undergo that pain in order for his brothers to see the light. And so for me, that rings true in the sense of being a black man here in America, that one of your own is willing for you to suffer in order for you to be able to make it at the end. And that's something that we don't talk enough about as black men, that to me, I felt as though a lot of the things he was going through, he was speaking directly to us. Was he speaking to black people and people in general? Yeah. But I think as a black man, you sort of feel when he did these prayers a whole nother, like to a whole other level. You know, I mean, maybe it's just me, but I felt it as a black man coming from him, because I could understand what he was going through. It wasn't just the demons and the drugs and stuff like that. It was probably stuff with his family, being able to be there for his kids, being able to be there for his community, to provide. I mean, all these different things that I could sort of run down to. Like, the things that he dealt with are the things that many regular black men dealt with, including those demons, but didn't have the resources to be able to sort of get out of it, or to feel like he can compartmentalize it like he did. And so many of them didn't make it out. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just rapping, you know? So that's just what I think. His overall legacy, we talked about it a lot. 5 #1 albums. The first 5 for him to come out, all of them hit. Billboard, US 200, #1, 5 in a row. There's nobody else in history who has done that. Not the Beatles, not Jay-Z, not Biggie, not Tupac, not Kanye. No, nobody else and has done that except for him. That's legacy right there. To be able to have something like Rough Riders Anthem and then Party Up, to have How It's Going Down and What These Bitches Want, to be able to have Get It On the Floor and then also Slippin'. I mean, a wide variety of emotions. To me, I'll always say that he was a 5-tool rapper. Like we talk about in baseball, there's a 5-tool player. In hip hop, he was a 5-tool rapper. He could do stuff for the streets. He did stuff for the clubs. He had stuff for the ladies. He had inspirational music, and of course, he had bars and he could rhyme. He could battle. Like, the one thing that I think a lot of people got twisted up is that they thought that he wasn't a lyricist, like, because of his style. But he was definitely a lyricist, without a shadow. Like, read some of those verses and listen to him. He had bars. Like, there were bars to the point that there were other MCs that were scared to get on tracks with him or are scared to battle him because he had bars. And that's the type of respect that we talk about that somebody has. We'll sort of close this out on what your favorite albums and also your favorite songs by him. So I'll start with you, Jay. What was your favorite album? And then just give us like 2 or 3 of your favorite songs.
So for me, it'd be Flesh of My Flesh.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Off of that joint, like the joint Ain't No Way.
Mm-hmm.
Like Keep Your Shit the Hardest, Slippin', of course. And simply off like creativity, just like The Omen, which was Damien too, like, because at that time I'm thinking this dude did the joint with Marilyn Manson, like, matter of fact, like when I first heard he was gonna do a song with Marilyn Manson, like, how, like,
right,
they're not even in the same, but then, like, you know what I'm saying, to hear the joint, how it came together, and everything from Swiss production to X's lyrics, it was just perfect, you know what I'm saying? So like, and it just has to be joints off this album, or it could be any other album.
Any DMX joint, man. Any of your DMX joint, yeah.
Oh yeah, well, like to say the joint Who We Be, and like, and going back to what I was saying as far as like, you know, seeing a live performance, like hearing people like still chanting like that part, like honestly, it gave me chills back then. Like, damn, like who could live up to something like that? Because I couldn't recall anybody really doing that, like, doing a live performance. So like I said, of course, like Who We Be, Get It on the Floor, and of course Rough Riders Anthem and the Rough Riders remix, which he really like spazzed out on, which was on DJ Clue's joint.
Yeah, the
And
Professional.
then,
Yeah.
we were on the Professional, right? And then going back to talking about prayers, like I don't know if you heard Games album LAX, like, but the prayer he did on that joint at the beginning, did you hear that one?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
I listen to that joint for motivation, like, to be for real with you. So I'm pretty sure I can name others, but and of course, 24 Hours to Live and like his features and stuff like Money, Power, Respect. So I was just, it's more than enough for a verse. I put it like that. So
yeah. And Damo, what about you? Favorite album and some of your favorite songs?
The favorite album was the first one. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he gave us hits. You know what I'm saying? So it ain't too many, X is Coming, Crime Story. Niggas done started something.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. Goodness. Yeah.
Of course, little soul, how's it going down? The little joke, the joke that we just said off the wall. What these bitches want from a nigga.
Yeah.
And he go through it's Brenda Letitia. I'm at an ice cream parlor.
Yeah.
You like, yo,
About
when
three
you
Kims.
young, when you young, you just rapping the song. You ain't even think about what the hell he said. You get older, you be like, hold on, this nigga was right.
Yeah.
What the hell what they want from a nigga?
Yeah, exactly.
I was too stuck on the fact, like, dang, he smashed through all them chicks. Like,
Exactly. Through all of them. Exactly.
That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 Kims, like,
And,
About 3 Kims.
Than it should be.
Right. Yeah.
Probably about 5 Kims.
Right. Exactly.
I think one of the saddest things is when you were saying is, how he fell off. You know what I'm saying? That we couldn't reach him to stop, or nobody can reach him to stop him from having such a decline.
Yeah.
To have it that he had to little bit come back, just a little bit. Like the way he was at before, him passing is still not to what we remember him as when in our day.
Yeah.
Like he's from that time when you say it's the time of hip hop to 03, a legend.
Yeah. To legend.
Like
legend.
you like, shh,
Yeah.
nigga, X, what?
Yeah. Legendary. Yeah.
Like nigga, whatever he touching, it's popping.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like shit, it's the shit. Like
Yeah.
and then it's just bam, he gone.
He
like,
gone.
Then he coming back with some music, but it didn't seem like he was giving the same passion that he gave in the beginning.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He gave the industry so much, and the industry didn't give him a whole lot back after he had his first little bit decline when he disappeared. You know what I'm saying? And that's part of the thing that I talk about with hip hop is, we gotta treat our legends better. You know what I'm saying? Before they're gone, because then we want to give our people flowers at the funeral. But like we always say, give them to them while they can still smell them. And I felt like he was starting to get that last year, but I think it was a little bit too late. You know what I mean? We should have been celebrating him based on what he did in the game. I mean, nobody accomplished what he had accomplished. I mean, 5 #1 albums just off the break. I mean, #1, that's it. I mean, he brought Def Jam back. I mean, now Def Jam had levels, but when underneath him, Def Jam became the top rap label in the game again. Real talk. My favorite album, obviously, is the first one. My favorite songs, obviously, I love Damien. I love How It's Going Down. I love Niggas Done Started Something. I love Slippin', which is such an important song. I loved Who We Be, We Right Here, and, Where the Hood At, and Get It on the Floor, and It's Okay, It's All Right. Hearing songs like that, every single one of the prayers, that you hear. I mean, very, very important. As a matter of fact, there was an announcement that they put out an EP of all the prayers that he had done. It's actually on a project that you can actually cop or listen to now. All of his prayers in one place, which is, I'm going to go listen to it as soon as we're done here, because I got to go hear them joints, man. His features, Money, Cash, Hoes. I mean, 4321. Shut Him Down. I mean, so many different features he's been on where he's shown, and he's definitely outshined the other rappers that he was on the track with. And as I continue to say, in '98, he was the biggest rapper in the world. Yes, he was even bigger than Jay-Z. Yes, He was bigger than Jay-Z during the year that he released the album that has sold the most records that Jay-Z has sold, is Volume 2, Hard Knock Life, which sold 6 million records. He was bigger than Jay-Z during that time. That just gives you an idea how big he was. It's a sad story. You feel heartbroken about it. I feel for all 15 of his kids. Yes, he has 15 children, and the last one was born in 2016. I feel for his ex-wife, for his fiance. I feel for his family. I feel for them because him, he wasn't DMX, he was Earl. And that's one thing that we need to understand during this whole thing is that let's not just talk about DMX, the rapper. Let's talk about Earl, the man who was a father, the man who was a husband, who was a fiance, who was a brother. You know, that's the person that people should also be praying for, is that don't just talk about DMX. Pray for Earl's family, too, because they're the ones dealing with the loss in this time as well. There we are, guys. Earl Simmons, DMX, gone at the age of 50, an icon, a legend, anything you could think about to, you know, any type of synonym to describe that man, the rapper, the artist, the poet. I mean, anything you could think about, he's gone, but his legend shall live on forever. So wherever you're at tonight, man, throw your prayers up and put your lighters up for Earl, for DMX, and respect his legacy and play that music and just think about just the man himself, not just the rapper, but the man. And that's going to wrap it up. Another edition of The Vault. Please make sure you check us out on our host on Red Circle. You can also download, stream, and subscribe to The Vault Classic Music Reviews on any one of our streaming sources. You can go to any one of the bios and all of our social media sites to our link tree, and we'll get all of our social media sites and also all of our streaming sources. You can, of course, follow The Vault on Instagram on @VaultCMR Podcast, @Vault Classic on Twitter, and, of course, on Facebook and YouTube, The Vault Classic Music Reviews Podcast. Like the Facebook page, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check us out and interact with us on social media. We do it here all for you. We always appreciate the support, and if you have a friend, tell a friend, and make sure that that friend tells a friend. Always remember to keep your headphones on and your music loud, but not too loud. And as we close, we'd like to remind everyone to dream big, because dreams are the basis for creation. Always create, motivate, and elevate, because you were never destined or created to stay stationary in this life. Rest in peace, DMX. And on that note, we say peace.
Thank you for listening and coming into The Vault. Please subscribe and follow us on Facebook at IV Creative and Instagram at IVECRE8.